You are not who you think you are, and that false identity is costing you your life. We begin by tracing the mythic symbol of Prometheus, bound by his own gift, then paralleling it with Jungian insight into ego inflation, emotional amnesia, and childhood imprinting. As the narrative unfolds, viewers are asked to confront when they quit trusting themselves and begin outsourcing approval. The final third walks into the psychological underworld, confronting the inner saboteur as an archetype formed by betrayal, fear, and false salvation. By the end, the viewer is left with no illusions about why they're stuck, only a mirror and a choice. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this. Now let's keep going. We inherit more than just memories, we inherit a blueprint for being. It's a ghost architecture built from the decisions and silences of those who came before. This inherited structure dictates how we orient ourselves, how we seek validation, and how readily we dim our own light. It's a cloak woven with the anxieties and compromises of generations, worn so long it feels like our own skin. This is the first step in tracing the architecture of our internalized prisons. We are given names, roles, and histories, but beneath these labels lies a more profound, often unacknowledged inheritance. Every belief you hold about yourself, about what is possible, about what you deserve, has roots far deeper than your own lived experience. It's a subtle form of theft, where the authentic self is replaced by a curated version designed to fit the framework of familial expectation. This framework, often disguised as love or protection, becomes a cage. The feeling of being trapped, of reaching for something just out of grasp, often originates here. It's a burden passed down, a phantom weight that shapes our deepest hungers and our most persistent fears. This false inheritance creates a subtle but profound disconnect. We act within prescribed lines, seeking a borrowed sense of belonging, yet a persistent whisper asks if this is truly us. It's as if we are reading from a script written by ghosts, playing a role that was never ours to begin with. This disconnect breeds a quiet desperation, a yearning for an origin story that feels more authentic. But what happens when the origin itself is a fabrication? In the next section, we'll explore the deceptive nature of the self we present, the one we believe reflects us. The world offers us countless reflections, each one a potential mirror. Yet most of these are not true mirrors, but distortions, polished surfaces designed to show us what we want to see or what others expect us to see. We are constantly interacting with these illusions, mistaking them for our own face. The relentless pursuit of external validation is a desperate search for an authentic reflection in a hall of funhouse mirrors. Each distorted image we grasp makes the original feel further away, lost in the warped glass. This manufactured self, this superficial identity, is built on a foundation of borrowed opinions and societal acceptance. We become adept at performing the version of ourselves that garners approval, learning to suppress any flicker of authenticity that might disrupt the illusion. The performance becomes so ingrained that we begin to believe it. This is the subtle tragedy of external mirroring, where the true self is gradually erased, replaced by a pleasing facade. The constant seeking of external cues, the likes, the compliments, the recognition, is a sign that we no longer trust our own internal compass. We have handed the reins over to the crowd, allowing them to define our worth. This outsourcing of self-worth is a profound act of exile, abandoning the very seat of our own authority. It leaves us adrift, perpetually seeking affirmation from sources that cannot truly know us. But if the external reflection deceives, where can the true self be found? The next section looks at the moment this illusion begins to crack when our name, our identity, is no longer our own. There comes a point when the name we answer to feels less like a birthright and more like a costume. It's a label assigned, a narrative imposed, a place carved out for us before we could even speak our own truth. This imposed identity, this borrowed name, can act as a subtle cage. It dictates our parameters, our expectations, and our perceived potential. We begin to answer to it automatically, a Pavlovian response to social conditioning. The sound of it might even evoke a flicker of unfamiliar recognition, as if someone else is being called. This is more than just an external designation. It's an internalization of roles and expectations. The name becomes a shorthand for who we are supposed to be, a convenient stand-in for the complexities of our evolving inner landscape. We start to perform the identity associated with the name, often unconsciously. This disconnect between the name and the true self creates a simmering disquiet, a feeling that the label is both too tight and too loose, never quite fitting the essence within. When the name is taken, it implies a loss of authorship over our own narrative. It's the first inscription on a blank slate that isn't entirely ours. The external world dictates the markings, and we learn to trace them as if they were our own creations. This silencing of our inherent right to self-naming is a foundational act of disempowerment. It lays the groundwork for a life lived in the shadow of another's decree, an echo rather than a voice. But what happens when the very essence we've been told defines us is built on a stolen spark? The next section confronts Prometheus, the titan who dared to give fire to humanity only to be shackled by his own brilliance. The myth of Prometheus speaks of a benevolent transgression, a divine gift offered to humanity that ultimately led to eternal torment. He stole fire from the gods, a symbol of knowledge, consciousness, and progress, and bestowed it upon mortals. Yet for this act of fierce generosity, he was chained to a rock, his liver devoured daily by an eagle and regenerating each night, an endless cycle of suffering born from his own empowering deed. This story is not just ancient lore, but a resonant echo of our internal lives. We too possess a fire, a potent inner spark of creativity, intuition, and authentic will. Often, in our eagerness to achieve, to connect, or to simply survive, we harness this fire to external goals. We build careers, relationships, and entire identities with its fervent energy. We mistake the fruits of this fire for its true source, becoming so attached to the outward manifestation of our gift that we forget its wild, untamed origin. We become, in essence, Prometheus, bound by our own brilliance. This binding happens when we allow our gifts to become chains, the very things that should liberate us, our talents, our insights, our capacity for love, become the instruments of our confinement. We exert all our energy to maintain the external structures built by our fire, exhausting ourselves in the process. The daily regeneration of the liver mirrors the persistent resurgence of our innate potential, a potential we keep offering up to the eagle of external demands. But this external binding is only a reflection of an inner state. The next section delves into the conscious construction of self, the masks we wear to navigate the world. The ego, that intricate construct of self-awareness, is both our navigator and our jailer. It's the part of us that insists on a coherent identity, a story that makes sense. In its quest for stability and self-preservation, it builds walls, erects defenses, and crafts a persona, a polished version of self designed to interact with the world. This persona isn't a lie, not entirely, but it is a curated selection, an edited version of our true being, presented for acceptance. It's the face we show the world, the mask of progress we wear to prove our worth and competence. This mask, the ego's grand design, is a testament to our survival instinct. It allows us to function in society, to form relationships, and to pursue goals. It's the engine of ambition, the architect of our plans, and the voice that says, "I am capable, I am successful, I am moving forward." It's a necessary illusion, a shield against the chaos and vulnerability of true existence. We can become so identified with this mask of progress that its absence feels like dissolution, like a terrifying unraveling of our very being. The danger lies not in having an ego or a persona, but in mistaking the mask for the face. The constant drive for external validation, for achievements that confirm the efficacy of our mask, becomes a hollow pursuit. We are perpetually seeking approval for an illusion, inadvertently creating a performance art piece of our lives. The relentless push forward, the ever-present need to appear competent and in control, leaves little room for authentic expression or the quiet wisdom of being. But what happens when the noise of progress deafens us to a different, more subtle truth? The next section explores the deliberate forgetting that helps us maintain the facade. In the relentless pursuit of progress and the maintenance of our carefully constructed ego, a peculiar form of amnesia often sets in. We begin to forget the inconvenient truths, the vulnerabilities, the moments of pure, unadulterated feeling that don't fit the narrative of strength and control. This emotional amnesia is not a passive forgetting, but an active repression, a deliberate pushing away of experiences that might shatter the illusion of a perfectly managed self. It's armor forged from the shards of past hurts, designed to deflect any further pain. This forgetting serves a crucial purpose. It allows us to continue functioning, to keep moving forward without being weighed down by the full burden of our past. We tell ourselves stories that smooth over the rough edges, conveniently discarding memories that reveal weakness or error. It's a survival mechanism taken to an extreme, where the present self is protected by systematically erasing the self of yesterday. We become adept at compartmentalizing, at locking away parts of ourselves that don't align with the approved version. The consequence of this amnesia is a profound disconnection. We lose touch with the emotional intelligence, the intuition, and the innate wisdom that resides in those very memories we've exiled. The pain we failed to process festers beneath the surface, manifesting in subtle but persistent ways. This is the armor that imprisons us, the forgetting that severs us from our own deeper knowledge. Yet the forgotten parts of ourselves don't disappear, they remain, waiting. In the next section, we'll uncover the silent, often unconscious rebellion of the inner child, whose unmet needs still cry out. Beneath the polished veneer of the adult persona, there exists an inner child, a repository of unmet needs, unexpressed emotions, and unresolved childhood wounds. This inner child doesn't disappear with age. It simply becomes quieter, more insistent, its pleas for attention and validation transforming into subconscious patterns of behavior. When these fundamental needs are continually denied or ignored, a silent revolt begins. It's an uprising from the depths of our being, a desperate attempt to reclaim the wholeness that was fractured in formative years. This revolt can manifest in myriad ways. Self-sabotage, chronic dissatisfaction, an insatiable craving for external validation, or an inability to form healthy attachments. The patterns we repeat, the relationships we find ourselves in, the obstacles we seem destined to encounter are often echoes of this inner child's unresolved drama. It's a silent scream for acknowledgement, a desperate plea for the love and security that were absent or insufficient. The adult self, caught in the grip of amnesia, may not even recognize the root cause of its suffering. The inner child's silent revolt is fueled by a primal yearning for wholeness and acceptance. It seeks to be seen, heard, and understood in its vulnerability. When this yearning goes unaddressed, the stored pain can erupt, undermining our carefully constructed adult lives. This internal insurrection is a testament to the enduring power of our earliest experiences. It reminds us that the past is never truly past, especially when its voice remains unheard. But what happens when this fractured self begins to break into seemingly unrelated pieces, making wholeness feel impossible? The next section explores how our identity itself starts fragmenting. The self, once perceived as a stable entity, begins to fracture. This fragmentation isn't a sudden event, but a slow disintegration, a process where our experiences, emotions, and beliefs become separate, often conflicting, entities within us. We start to feel like a collection of disjointed parts rather than a cohesive whole. One moment we are driven and confident, the next we are riddled with doubt and inertia, unable to reconcile these opposing forces within ourselves. This fracturing is a direct consequence of suppressing our authentic selves and the unmet needs of our inner child. Each suppressed emotion, each unacknowledged wound, becomes a shard of glass, sharp and reflective, scattered within our psyche. These fragments gain a life of their own, pulling us in different directions, creating internal chaos. We might find ourselves exhibiting contradictory behaviors, holding conflicting values, or feeling entirely alien to our own thoughts and feelings. The very concept of a singular, stable I begins to dissolve, replaced by a confusing mosaic of disparate pieces. This internal fragmentation mirrors external systems that thrive on division. It's the psychological manifestation of being told who to be, what to feel, and how to act, all while a deeper, truer self struggles for expression. The inability to integrate these disparate parts leads to a pervasive sense of unease and dissatisfaction. We are perpetually at war with ourselves, our inner landscape a battlefield of warring factions. Yet, even in this disintegration, a pattern emerges, a testament to a fundamental human drive. But what is this desperate, relentless pursuit that seems to define so much of our modern existence? The next section will explore the relentless chase for an unattainable ideal. The modern condition is often characterized by a relentless, gnawing sense of incomprehension, a feeling that something vital is missing. This absence fuels a constant striving, a desperate attempt to fill a void that seems bottomless. We are driven by an insatiable hunger, a desire for more success, more possessions, more validation, as if external accumulation can somehow mend the internal emptiness. This is the cathedral of never enough, a monument built on the shaky foundation of perceived deficiency. It's the spiritual architecture of the modern soul, perpetually under construction, yet never complete. This feeling of never being enough is not inherent, it's cultivated. It's nurtured by societal messages that equate worth with achievement, by comparisons that highlight our perceived shortcomings, and by a deep-seated fear that our authentic selves are fundamentally inadequate. We are taught to measure ourselves against impossible standards, making true contentment an elusive dream. The pursuit of an idealized self, one that is always more accomplished, more desirable, and more together, becomes an endless cycle of striving and falling short. The cathedral of never enough is filled with the echoes of our deepest insecurities. Every step we take towards external goals is an attempt to silence the whisper that asks, "Are you good enough?" We chase fleeting moments of satisfaction, mistaking them for lasting completion. Yet the internal architecture remains incomplete, the hunger for more ever present. It is a gilded cage where the bars are forged from our own anxieties. But what happens when the relentless noise of this chase finally subsides, allowing a different kind of sound to emerge? The next section calls forth the forgotten voice that has been drowned out. In the deafening roar of external demands and the relentless pursuit of more, a quieter, more ancient voice has been systematically silenced. It's the voice of our intuition, our innate wisdom, the primal knowing that resides at the core of our being. This forgotten voice doesn't shout, it whispers, guides, and nudges. It is the carrier of our authentic truth, the compass that points towards genuine fulfillment. Its suppression is a profound act of self-betrayal, a relinquishing of our most trusted internal guidance system. This silencing is an ongoing process, often initiated in childhood when our genuine expressions were met with disapproval or indifference. As we grow, we learn to mute this voice, prioritizing external validation and societal expectations. We convince ourselves that the external world, with its logic and its rules, knows better than our own inner knowing. The pragmatism of survival overrules the wisdom of the soul. This leads to a life lived out of sync, constantly fighting against our own natural currents, exhausted by the effort. The return of the forgotten voice is not a gentle reawakening, but often a seismic shift. It requires us to consciously disengage from the external noise, to create sacred spaces of silence where its subtle tones can be heard. It demands courage to trust this inner guidance, especially when it contradicts what the world tells us is right or necessary. It's a reclaiming of our birthright, a re-establishment of sovereignty over our own inner landscape. But what if the voice that seeks to guide us isn't a benevolent sage, but something far more insidious, lurking in the shadows? The next section reveals the archetype that thrives on our pain. Beneath the surface of our aspirations and the guise of self-improvement, a potent archetype waits, the inner saboteur. This figure is not an external enemy, but an internalized force, a complex manifestation of betrayal, fear, and the siren song of false salvation. It thrives in the fertile ground of our insecurities, feeding on our doubts and meticulously undermining our progress. It wears a crown, not of genuine authority, but of twisted self-importance, commanding an army of our own fears and anxieties. This saboteur is born from the moments we felt betrayed, by others, by circumstances, and most profoundly, by ourselves. It is the embodiment of the belief that we are fundamentally flawed, incapable, or undeserving of the good we seek. It whispers insidious doubts, planting seeds of fear that paralyze us at critical junctures. It orchestrates our failures not out of malice, but out of a deep-seated, albeit misguided, attempt to protect us from perceived greater pain. Its logic is perverse. If we fail before we truly try, the sting of rejection is lessened. The crown it wears is the illusion of control. By ensuring our downfall, it feels like it is directing the narrative, preventing a more catastrophic outcome. It is a twisted form of self-preservation, a dark guardian that believes it is protecting us from disappointment. This archetype is profoundly intertwined with the systems of reward and punishment we have internalized, ensuring we never truly escape the cycle of striving and self-inflicted defeat. But what happens when the very tools of our perceived salvation become the instruments of our continued entrapment? The next section explores the deceptive allure of quick fixes. In our desperation to escape the pain of fragmentation and the grip of the inner saboteur, we often seek refuge in false salvation. These are the quick fixes, the addictive lights that promise immediate relief but ultimately deepen our entanglement. They are the seductive promises of easy answers, the readily available distractions that numb the ache of our unresolved issues. From excessive consumption to compulsive behaviors, these external solutions offer a temporary luminosity, a blinding brightness that obscures the underlying darkness. These false salvations are like mirrors that are already cracked. They reflect a distorted image of wholeness, a shimmering illusion of peace that crumbles upon closer inspection. We become addicted to the fleeting feeling of escape, mistaking it for genuine healing. The intensity of the light distracts us from the slow, arduous work of integrating our fragmented selves and confronting the shadows. We are drawn to the immediate glow, ignoring the profound cost of such superficial remedies. The shiny surface of these false saviors masks a deeper entrapment. They are meticulously designed to keep us bound, feeding the very systems that perpetuate our suffering. The addictive quality ensures our return, drawing us back into the cycle of seeking solace from external, ephemeral sources. We mistake temporary numbness for lasting peace, trading the potential for authentic healing for the illusion of immediate comfort. But this pursuit of light, however bright, can never truly illuminate the path forward if it doesn't acknowledge the darkness within. The next section acknowledges that the journey into the psyche has no clear path. The journey into the depths of the psyche, the descent into the underworld of the self, is not a charted expedition. There is no map, no definitive guide, only the raw, untamed terrain of our own unconscious. We embark on this path not through conscious choice or intellectual understanding, but through an insistent pull, a growing awareness that the surface is no longer sustainable. It is a descent into the unknown, a surrender to the mystery that lies beneath the layers of our constructed identity. This descent involves confronting everything we have suppressed, exiled, or forgotten. It means facing the inner saboteur, acknowledging the wounds of the inner child, and recognizing the deceptive allure of false salvation. The path is often arduous, marked by confusion, discomfort, and moments of profound despair. There are no signposts indicating progress, no logical sequence to follow. The only guide is the unfolding revelation, the emergent truth that arises from within. It is a process of becoming, not of arriving. The absence of a map is not a defect, but a feature of true psychological exploration. It forces us to rely on our nascent intuition, to trust the subtle currents of our inner world. The terrain shifts and changes with our own evolving consciousness. What appears as an obstacle can often be a threshold, a gate to deeper understanding. This journey demands patience, self-compassion, and an unwavering willingness to meet ourselves in our entirety, not just the parts we deem acceptable. But in this unmapped territory, when the old illusions crumble, what remains? The final section presents the stark reality of choice. When the illusions that have anchored our identities begin to dissolve, when the false edifices of self-worth crumble, we are left in a state of profound collapse. The carefully constructed persona, the performances, the borrowed beliefs, all are laid bare. This is not an ending, but a terrifying, exhilarating void. In this space of absolute vulnerability, where all that we thought we were ceases to exist, a singular truth emerges. Choice. It is in this moment of profound emptiness that the authentic self is finally free to form or to fade entirely. The collapse is not a failure, but a necessary dismantling. It is the purging of the false inheritance, the shattering of distorted mirrors, the reclamation of our own names. It is the shedding of Prometheus's chains, the unmasking of the ego's performance. It is the acknowledgement of amnesia and the healing of the inner child's revolt. This is the moment where fragmentation can either solidify into permanent breakage or begin the arduous process of integration. With this collapse comes the terrifying freedom to choose who we will be, not based on external dictates or internalized fears, but from the quiet resonance of our own core being. Will we grasp for the fading echoes of the past, or will we step into the uncharted territory of our own becoming? The cathedral of never enough is in ruins, the forgotten voice is calling, and the inner saboteur has lost its power. The choice rests entirely within the silence of this profound realization. Now that concludes this video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.